All right, this is discussing how to write conclusion paragraphs. If you watched my other video on introduction paragraphs, I mentioned before that these are basically reflections of each other. The introduction paragraph starts with an attention grabber and ends with the thesis statement for the essay, whereas the conclusion paragraph starts with the thesis statement and ends with a variation on an attention grabber. I like to call it the drop the mic. So, as I mentioned, you're going to rewrite your thesis statement. Now, when I say rewrite, that means a whole new version of it, okay? Don't copy it word for word or verbatim. You want to use a different manner. The fanboys mentioned here in the example, that means using a conjunction to join two thoughts together for your topic sentence, and that's in my topic sentences video. But for example, if you said, volleyball setting is an important skill to learn, comma, and it's really easy to master, that would be, you'd want to pick something different for your conclusion paragraph. You also want to restate your main points. This is kind of just a refresher for the reader on what you were trying to convey to them or convince them of, depending on the type of essay. So don't copy it again word for word. You want to try and vary it up a little bit. And of course, you can combine your thesis statement and your main points or supporting reasons for your thesis statement into one sentence in a list style. Be careful, though, if you have some really wordy supporting reasons, you might want to just do separate sentences, okay? But you want to remind the reader, here's what I was trying to make sure you understood. Finally, this is the drop the mic, or also known sometimes as end with a bang. You want to finish your essay with a strong statement that gives the reader something to think about even after they've read your essay, like kind of a final note to end on. You do not want to add new information at this point. You simply want to sum up your information in a way that makes the reader go, ooh, or in a good way. There's typically two forms of this. One is the call to action. This is where you reach out to the reader in some way and kind of encourage them to take this information and use it positively. Or the final thought. This is just a final statement that builds on what you've already talked about for this essay that really drives the point home. Again, this is where the drop the mic really comes in handy as a descriptor, because you want to feel like you effectively dropped the mic on the reader and the reader's like, what? Okay. So here's a couple more don'ts. I already said this one. Don't add new information in your conclusion, because you don't want to overwhelm your reader with more information that should have been covered previously. If you find in your rough draft that you're adding new information in your conclusion paragraph, you need to go back into your body paragraphs and see where you can add that information in and take it out of your conclusion. You also don't want to use the phrase in conclusion or a variation thereof or some sort of cliche. Cliches are those sayings that everybody says, and you want to present yourself as someone new and authoritative to the reader and not someone who's just taking other people's great words and using it without giving credit, okay? And, or as I said in here, boring. Also with in conclusion, it's redundant. Obviously, if this is the last paragraph, they can see it's the last paragraph. They know you're concluding, or at least you should be at this point. And finally, you don't want to write more than 3 to 5 sentences. Just like with the introduction paragraph, this is wrapping it up, so it's brief. All the explaining should have happened in the body paragraphs. If you feel your conclusion's getting over 5 sentences, you need to edit. And if you notice you're adding new information, like I've already said, go find what place to put it in the body paragraphs. Yes, I've mentioned it 3 times now. That's how important it is. All right. So here would be an example using an expository essay on volleyball for a decent conclusion paragraph. Once you learn the basics, setting a volleyball is easy. That was the main topic. And here's the supporting reasons. All one has to do is get his or her body in the right position, make a triangle with his or her fingers, then gently catch and quickly toss the ball back in an arch towards the spiker with his or her fingertips. This would be an example of the list style, but you see I made it a separate sentence instead of adding it to my topic sentence or thesis. Once a person practices these 3 steps enough, they will become a crucial part of their team. Now get out there and set some volleyballs. This would be an example of the end with a bang call to action. This is where I'm encouraging the reader to go out there and become the best volleyball setter they can be. Here's another example, this time using the argumentative essay animal testing. And in this case, it was arguing for both sides. So animal testing is a controversial topic, and the 2 sides are clearly in disagreement. And this is where I'm sharing the different reasons. Those in favor feel it's necessary. Those against the practice feel it's cruel and unnecessary torture of animals. And here's my final thought for my drop the mic. While one side may never be able to convince the other that it's correct in its views, both sides have clear arguments demonstrating sound reason, making the selection of the right side very difficult. Right as incorrect. Okay. So that's how to write a conclusion paragraph. Again, they mirror each other, they being introductions and conclusions. So you can take your introduction and slightly reword it, or maybe a little more than slightly reword it, to become your conclusion paragraph. And that attention grabber, if you can relate your drop the mic statement to it, that's actually going to end really strongly as well. Let's try one. Sorry. Okay, so let's use this one. We've all judged someone. I'm actually going to copy it and pretend I'm writing a conclusion paragraph. So, thesis statement here, supporting reasons. Please just go with it. All right. Now, you don't want to just reuse your attention grabber, okay? I'm going to start with this and assume that you've probably judged someone when you have no idea what their life is like when you're not around. So if I'm going to make this my drop the mic, I don't want to just repeat it verbatim. I want to consider how can I remind the reader that this is what I talked about and then add a final thought to it. So you have probably judged someone without considering what their life is like when you're not around, which is an understandable mistake we've all made. Taking that extra step to consider the other person's private struggles, however, will show them empathy and make you a better person. Boom, drop the mic. Again, this is coming off the cuff, so it's probably not the best sentence, but you can see how it took the topic sentence or the attention grabber in the introduction paragraph and went back to it, said, hey guys, remember when I brought this up, and added some extra thought that could make the reader go, yeah, I guess you're right. Thank you for watching and for listening to me ramble. Hopefully this information is helpful to you. And of course, if you're my student, you are always welcome to ask for clarification and some other ideas. Thanks.